So I never use an inline lead straight out of the packet. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly why and how a very tiny change can transform the efficiency of an inline lead and put more carp on the bank. Okay, so what I've done is I've set up an inline lead, and I've done it in the way that the manufacturers originally intended this product to be used. So I've done this example with rig tubing. We've got a tail rubber pushed onto the plastic insert like that, and then the size 8 ring swivel pushed into the plastic insert at the other end. Now, what's wrong with that, you might think? So we've got a supple braided rig on here. It doesn't really matter what the rig is, but I've just gone for a supple braided rig because they work best with inline leads anyway. And Carp's going to come along, he's going to feel the weight of the lead. Now the good thing is that he's going to pick up the lead from the heaviest end. That's why inline leads work well. And he's going to pick up, he's going to pivot on the tail rubber like that, which is great. That's just going to give us some transference of weight there. By that point he's going to realise he's got it wrong, and he's going to shake his head. And it's just an instinct, you know, they just feel a resistance and they think, oh, I don't like that. So if I simulate the shaking of the head, I'll give it a good bang around there, and you can see that the lead is not moving. The swivels come out a little way, and if I continue shaking, it is going to pop out. But I was shaking that quite hard to do that, and multiple times. The problem is that if you give the carp that amount of time and that many goes in order to shake the lead, he's probably going to be able to use the weight of the lead to throw the rig. If we do this a bit differently and kind of throw the lead around like that, you can see that you've got quite a lot of swing, and the lead isn't moving away, and the hook is being tilted that way and that way, and these are all forces which are levering this hook out. So, you know, if he sits that over there and doesn't move, he's going to try and shake it and do that. You know, if he swings his head violently, it's going to swing that way, it's going to swing that way, and these are all working against you. He's going to do that rig if he's got any experience of encountering rigs on a regular basis. So there's nothing inherently dangerous about this rig. It's a safe way to fish. And you know, if this leg gets stuck, the carp's pulling, that swivel's going to pop out of there, dunk, and then we're into a free running system. And in the event of a mainline failure, the line will just kind of pull through, and the lead will be safely left on the lake bed away from the hook, which is what we want. If you're fishing a runs water where you're used to catching 5-10 carp in a day, then a simple rig like this is going to work great. You know, you're going to catch a load of fish, it's going to be safe, you're going to retain the lead so you're not dumping a load of lead in the water, so it's going to save you money, better for the environment. So for runs waters, it's a perfectly effective way to fish. Inline leads are perfect for creating short and aggressive rigs. They're great over a rock hard bottom, and they work beautifully with solid PVA bag fishing. So I'm sure loads of you are going out there using an inline lead in this fashion and catching loads of carp. The problem is when you start going up the scale in terms of level of difficulty, bigger carp, fewer carp, or carp that are more heavily fished for, you'll find that rigs like this are going to start letting you down. But you're not necessarily going to know that that is where the problem lies. What's going to happen is you're going to get a few bleeps and then probably nothing. It's that short kind of flurry of bleeps that bothers me. That's the kind of indication for me that a carp has gotten away with it. So if you want to use inline leads on a more challenging water, we've got to think a bit differently. So we've already seen how a carp can use the weight of the lead against us to throw the hook. There's another big problem with using a traditional semi-fixed rig like this. In open water, it's not so bad, as generally speaking, the carp are going to be trying to swim away from you against the angle of resistance. So if I set this rig up as though, from your point of view, you're at the rod and the margin is my chest and this is the lead. The carp picks this up. He can only move three ways. He can move to my right, to my left, or back towards you. If he moves left, the bite indication is going to be absolutely rubbish. When I used to fish rigs like this, I've had it as bad as, I've had a single beep and I've seen the fish that I'm connected to bosh in the margin 30 metres away, and all I've heard is one single beep. That's absolutely useless. We have no idea what's going on with a semi-fixed rig like this. The only way to get any bite indication whatsoever is to basically have an absolutely bowstring tight line, so that when the lead is moved by the carp, it automatically kind of springs back with the elasticity in the line, and we'll get a massive drop back indication that something wrong. That's okay, but you've got a margin like that and you want to present a lead somewhere along this margin. Maybe you don't want to present it at the bottom of the slope for whatever reason. You present that lead on that point there on the slope. If you have a tight line running back to your rod like that, the carp are going to be going up and down this margin, and all you're going to get is bibs and bangs as they bash into the line. The carp will do that a few times, basically suss that there's something wrong and vacate the area, and you'll never have another beep fishing in that kind of configuration again. So it's really difficult to catch a carp in that situation. So what are the options that we can do to this in order to make this situation better? Well, one option would be to pull the swivel out. We leave the plastic insert in place, and then we could squash that swivel down with a pair of pliers so that it goes in there with a very low force. That's one option. The other option is we could put a buffer bead or a ball bead over the end of that swivel that will prevent the swivel actually being pulled into the plastic insert in the first place. These are two perfectly valid options. So I've just given the small ring of this swivel a bit of a nip, and I'm going to retie it onto the main line. And if we offer that up there, you can see that that pops in there with very little resistance. It's in, out, so that there's no force there whatsoever. So let's have a look at what happens when Mr. Carp comes along, picks up the rig and encounters this lead. So with very little force and very quickly, that swivels pops straight out of the bottom of that lead, and whether he moves left, right, away, back, you're always going to get some form of indication. It might only be slight, but you're going to get a lift on the bobbin, hopefully a few beeps, and then you'll get an indication that there's something going on. So this is how to set up an inline lead as basically just a pure running lead. It's like the old-fashioned kind of drilled bullet. The lead isn't doing much in terms of pricking the fish, it's just kind of a mechanism to get us out onto the spot and to hold the rig in position. But these rigs do work. I find them more effective than a traditional semi-fixed rig that the carp can use against you to throw the hook. So it's a small modification, but I find this tweak away from the traditional out of the packet approach is more effective. The other option is to use something like this, which is a little ball bead, and then on top of that I'm going to add a shock bead. Then I can take my swivel. This is an undamaged swivel, so this is a good option if you don't want to damage or modify the swivel in any way. So you might think it's over the top to have to use two products here, but this is the way that this system was designed. And this shock bead has a shallow dish here, and if I wasn't to use the ball bead on top of that, you can see the knot is exposed there, and that's going to run into the inside of the lead and could catch on the plastic and damage it. So by sliding on a 6mm ball bead there, it just keeps it nice and safe. I probably wouldn't use this inside a solid PVA bag because that's going to be a bit awkward to do, but the slightest movement from the hook end is going to give you an indication, so it's very sensitive. So both of those options are valid and will work, but I think we can do a bit better because neither of those options are using the weight of the lead to actually hook the fish. We're just relying on the elasticity of the line and the gradual build up in tension. We get fantastic bite indication, but are we hooking the fish as well as we possibly could be? So let's have a look at how to take an inline lead to the next level. So what I want to do is I want to remove this plastic insert, and the easiest way I've found to do that is just to press it against a firm surface like a table and then pop it out like that. So with the plastic insert removed from the inline lead, I'm just going to take some bare mainline. This option will not work with tubing, so it's only suitable if you want to fish naked. I'm then going to take an anti-tangle sleeve. This is an XL version in tungsten. Thread the mainline through there. Then we'll reconnect our swivel with a rig. Then we take the anti-tangle sleeve and with a little bit of force by pulling the main line and pushing on the sleeve, we force the sleeve over the end of the swivel like that. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to wet the anti-tangle sleeve, and you're going to find that every single sleeve and every single lead is a bit different. It's going to vary from manufacturers to manufacturers. It's going to vary from component to component, to be honest. So that's just a kind of a light press fit in there. That goes in there like that. Now, this is quite a decent setup if you want to fish a solid PVA bag, because this gives you something to mould the top of the bag around. So what we can see is, again, the lead is being picked up from the heavy end. This long sleeve gives this extra kind of pivot effect as well, and then with some shakes of the head, one shake in this instant, that lead is off. So that's perfect. So set up like this, we're using all the benefits of the lead. The weight is tightening the hook link, and the weight of the lead is imparting a force on the hook point in order to hook the fish better. But as soon as it shakes its head, dunk, it's off. A couple of shakes that time. So if you want to use an inline lead, fish naked like this, in a solid PVA bag with a nice long sleeve, then that's a nice option, if you can get the fit right. Another way of using a tungsten anti-tangle sleeve like this is with a lead-free leader. To use it this way, I'm just going to take some mono. It can be any mono you want, just a bit of mainline. Take some lead-free leader. This is the Klingon in 40 pounds. I wouldn't try and use kind of 65-pound material. That's going to be too heavy for this size of anti-tangle sleeve. Once you've threaded through the top loop, go back through the anti-tangle sleeve, and hopefully that pops through like that. That's nice. And then all we've made is basically a threading tool. That's all the mono has been used for. We gently pull the Klingon into the sleeve. You might want to actually wet this, because that will just help it slide down. And again, pull the sleeve onto the swivel like that. I'm just going to pull this piece of mono out there that we used as the threading tool, take the loop in the Klingon, pop the lead on, and then we simply draw the anti-tangle sleeve. That's got a bit dry, it's wet that. Draw the anti-tangle sleeve into the inline lead like that. So if you wanted to set this up to do interchangeable loop-to-loop solid PVA bag fishing, what I'd do is I'd tie a large non-slip mono loop knot, and then I pass the tag end back through the way that it exited, and I want to make sure that I've got a nice big loop so I can put a bag through it. That looks good to me. 2 or 3 centimeters of tag end left, and then we just whip round 4 or 5 times, and then when you go back through, you need to go the same way parallel to the two tag ends of this loop here. It's the only way that this will work. And then draw it up, wet it, and then just pull that down. I'm not messing around with rig pullers and pulling this tight because this is just for demonstration purposes, but obviously you tighten that down properly, trim the tag end, and then we take our main line, we pass the main line through the loop at the top of the leader, and then we pass the whole rig through that. Obviously you'd already have a solid PVA bag made up here, and there we've got our loop on loop off solid PVA bag set up. So the lead's imparting the full weight onto the point of the hook, which is a good thing, and then one shake, 1 and a bit shakes, and he's off. So that's a great little system, works really well for solid PVA bag work. Another option, if you want to use a lead-free leader, would be to use something like this, which is an inline lead insert. And we just use the needle to pop that on there like that. Thread the insert down. Insert pushes over the swivel. Take the inline lead. Thread through the leader. What I found is that these kind of fitment splines here, they're kind of parallel. So they give a nice controlled fit. This is a Corda lead, works well with a Nash lead. It's not going to work with something like a Fox lead, that's for sure, because the Fox leads use a slightly larger diameter. But if you're on those two types of leads, then this little insert works just fine. The advantage of something like this is that you can't overdrive that. You can push that in as hard as you like and it still pulls out ever so easily. So let's have a look at how this one works. Again, we can see that the lead is staying in contact with the insert and we're getting the full impact to the lead. That's great. And then even with just a tiny shake, dunk, it's off. Because these fins are parallel and it's impossible to overdrive it, it's just a nice little delicate fit. All I'm looking for is the subtlest bump in order to hook the fish. So while the long anti-tangle sleeve just about worked, you'll notice that once or twice I had to shake 1.5 times, sometimes 2 times in order to get that lead to drop away. With this one, very little shake, the subtlest bump and it's off. So if you're looking for a really kind of delicate trick setup that is going to fool the wiliest of carp, then this one is a really good option. If you need to use an inline lead with rig tubing, here's what you can do. So I've got some main line already threaded through some tubing. Insert has been removed obviously from the inline lead. Pass the main line through the lead. And then what we need is a little tail rubber. There are loads of tail rubbers out on the market and all the manufacturers are a bit different, to be honest. I'm going to use the Corda lead with the Corda tail rubber because that combination, I came up with a combination years and years ago. It's reliable and it works. Other combinations will work, but you're going to have to kind of test this out for yourself to see which bits that you've got are going to make this happen for you. So tubing on, lead on, tail rubber on, then we can add a swivel. So we take the swivel and push the tail rubber onto it like that. It's really important to make sure that that swivel is pushed fully into the tail rubber like that. You don't need to kind of bury it so that it all locks up. So make sure it still spins, but do push that swivel all the way in. Then take your rig tubing and push the rig tubing all the way as far as it will go into the tail rubber like that. You can then offer up the lead to the tail rubber and you can see it just offers a little bit of resistance here on this lead. Might be a bit of extra coating on there. So you're getting a bit of a transition fit there and it pops on there like that. The classic mistake which I've seen loads of guests make over the years is pushing that tail rubber far too far into the lead. If you overdrive the tail rubber into the lead, it's just going to behave like a standard inline lead, and that is what we're trying to get away from. So in order to demo this rig, again, I'm just going to wet that tail rubber. A light press, a really light press into the lead. And the way we want it to work is this. Carp picks up the lead, and if the lead stays in place, that is exactly what we want. And then one little shake of the head, dunk, is off. Done like that, it's a very delicate and effective setup. So it's really easy to get this wrong. If you don't push the swivel into the tail rubber far enough and you push the tail rubber into the lead too far, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so we're moving the lead, that's all good, but then the swivel parts from the tail rubber, and this is not what you want, because then the whole of this assembly is sliding up the main line, and it's actually safer if the lead slides over the tubing like that and is ejected, because this will happen very quick and efficiently. So with these systems you get the best of both worlds. The lead is doing its job, it's pricking that fish, but as soon as the carp knows that the game is up and it shakes its head, the lead drops away, converts into a running lead system, which means you get the best of bite indication, and no matter whether he moves back towards you, left or right, you really should know that something is amiss and it's time to wind down and hit it.